Welcome to PR Lab, Design Like a Pro, a workshop series designed to transform your digital canvas into masterpieces. Today marks the beginning of our exciting journey into the realm of creativity and design, brought to you by District 41's PR team, which is PR Lab. And I'm thrilled to have each one of you here today for your participation. For us, this is part one of four. We'll have four series of workshop for you in this PR lab, where we will embark on how to master on the art of effective designing with none other than our incredible uh, Toastmaster Anu Shrestha with us. So, without further ado, let's dive into the workshop with Toastmaster Anus. But before that, I would request again for those who are joining us with mobile, I would suggest for you to join from your laptop, because it would be better experience for you to learn on designing. And also, I would also appreciate, we would love to see all your lovely faces, so that we can have a very interactive and good experience with you all for this workshop. So, having said that, Toastmaster Anus, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Kajol, and a wonderful evening to everybody. I am overwhelmed with all of you that are participating today, and I am looking forward to a wonderful session. By the end of this session, I hope we will be able to learn a little bit about designing and actually get on to designing a poster today ourselves. So with that, let me share my screen. Can I get a thumbs up if my screen is visible?
Yes.
So as Toastmaster Kajol did mention earlier, if you guys can possibly join from your laptop, please do so, because we will be using Canva and I will be asking you guys to follow me or design your own posters towards the end of this meeting. So if that is possible for you at all, please do go ahead and join in from your laptops. And please do pardon me. I will need to be taking a few breaks because I am suffering from a little bit of a cough. So I will be coughing in the middle and taking a few mute breaks for that. So what we will cover in this session today is we'll learn a few essentials of design principles. There are a lot of design principles, but I will go through the ones that make my job, and like whenever I'm designing, it makes my job a lot easier. And I will be sharing that with you to make sure that you guys can follow on the same things and apply those to your designs as well. We will then talk about what steps we can take to prepare to design, what our designing processes can be, and how we can elaborate on that. And we'll also be talking about different kind of composition techniques, about how to actually decide what to put on your designs, where to put it, and how you can go about on the designs. And then again, we will be going through that process to actually come up with a design on Canva, the free version, so that it is a tool that it is readily available for everyone and everybody can use it to an extent. So hopefully we'll be able to discuss on that. And of course, if you guys have any questions in the middle, please do leave it on the chat. I'll try to get to it while I'm presenting, but if I cannot, I'll definitely try to get that towards the end of the session. So are you guys all excited? If you guys are, let's see some thumbs again. Wonderful, wonderful. So before we begin, I would like to start actually with a question. So I would just want you guys to go and like, you can answer this on the chat room itself, but all of these, I want you guys to do it on your first reaction. Which one out of these two do you guys feel is more expensive? The one to the right or the one to the left? Right? But on first glances, we tend to see that our attention is drastically goes towards the $20 or amount over there compared to the $15 on the other side. However, due to the design and how it is placed, we do not tend to notice the $5 and $6 shipping charges that are applied, which equates to the one on the right being obviously more expensive. Similarly, which one of these two chips would you prefer to buy? The one on the left or the right? Or you can just say one or two, one and two. So one for the one on the left and two for the one on the right. So I see a lot of twos, right? Any reason behind choosing the one on number two? Right, exactly. Like, but so with the 20% more, that our attention is drastically like goes towards that writing over there on this side, making it more attractive towards us. Now, how do we achieve this through design? Right? Because this is done on the basis of the design itself. You can see everything else is pretty much the same. If you look at the one on the left, the cookie is actually bigger on that compared to the one on the left or on the right. However, that red bar that contrasts with the design with the white writing makes our grabs our attention really, really well. So this is done by establishing what is called a hierarchy. So hierarchy in design usually utilizes different kinds of concepts, including size, color, contrast, alignment, repetition, to make sure that we are guided towards a certain thing in a design, right? So if you can see the image on the right over here, you will obviously read the one that is the biggest first, right? Then you move forward to the one over here, then over here, and your design ends up over here. However, this is not placed typically how you would be seeing in a text like this. If you see a text, we read the title, then we move on to the text from left to right, left to right. But with this design, we are looking at something that is on the right first, then moving back to the left, then going down, then going back to the right again. So this is how contrasting in size and colors make a difference, because the color black obviously contrasts better with the colors on the background, and the contrast slowly decreases on that regards as well. So with whenever we are designing, we are actually guiding the audience through our designs, making sure we have the audience look at what is important to us and then move on and move forward to the minute details as well. So the first thing that we establish has to be the thing that needs to be the most important. So whenever we're designing posters or like, congratulatory posts, level completion posters, we have to first decide what element inside that design is the most important. Accordingly, that needs to be the thing that captures your attention first, right? If it is an interesting theme, your theme needs to be really, really, visible. If it is say you have a guest speaker coming in, which is a very prominent guest speaker for your club, then the guest speaker's name and the face should be highlighted, because that is going to be the most recognizable thing, and that is going to garner your attention. Again, pardon me. So this hierarchy can also be achieved in text as well. So if we're reading books and if you're reading anything in like papers and stuff like that, you guys always can notice that on the same text, you can create hierarchy by just making a bold face font, right? Over here, nothing is particularly standing out, but over here, the Venice Biennale is definitely standing out because it is just the weight of that font is thicker. Similarly, you can do it by contrasting color. You can contrast typefaces. If something over here was all caps, then that would have been even more attractive to the audience. And that is how we can guide people through our designs through hierarchy. Similarly, the next rule, if you guys are familiar with photography, I'm pretty sure you guys are familiar with the term rule of thirds, right? If you guys have, even on your camera, if you take pictures, you can enable a grid on your cameras, right? How many of you guys have enabled a grid, like a grid enabled in your phone cameras or even your DSLR cameras, right? So that is the exact grid that follows the rule of thirds. So according to this grid, a person is a human tendency is to look towards the top left. So 45% of our attention goes to the top left right away. Following that, the bottom left, then the top right, and then the bottom right. So if you are placing things in case of importance, then you will be placing the minute details that is not very important somewhere in the bottom right corner, right? So a great example of this is with something like this. So again, it is not necessary that you are you are just placing one element on four sides. If you combine these 2 points, right? If you notice, this was 20% and 14%, right? So you are balancing out with this text with the entire image, right? So our tendency then becomes that we look over here first, then we move on to the image, then we move on to the signature, and then other details that are not as important per se, right? Similarly, this is also utilized a lot in movie posters, right? If you have seen the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, you would think that the title of the movie would be more important. However, in this case, 61% of the attention is focused on the stars, where they are combining these 2 points with their 2 most prominent characters, and the title comes in as a sub-thought, right? So this is how you can actually achieve the establish hierarchy using the rule of thirds as well. So I'll stop at this point to, if you guys have any questions regarding the past 2 top points that we discussed. If you guys have any questions, please do leave it in the chat, or I think you can raise your hand and the tech master will be able to unmute you as well.
Yes. Yeah. Sure.
If you do not have any questions, then I will move forward. I'll give it another 10 seconds maybe.
Anuj, we have a question in the chat.
Yes. Is there any way to know the contrast between 2 images online? Toastmaster Dipesh, could you actually elaborate on that a little bit? I'm not sure I completely understand what you're trying to imply.
The question is, means how, if we have 2 versions of a particular poster, then how we can compare which one of them have better contrast and which one we should post.
Okay. So we will discuss that when we are doing our practical exercises as well. Right now, I do not have any examples of posters that Toastmaster posters with me, but again, I think that is a discussion that we can have while we are designing as well. If you have any specific posters that you have in mind, please do send it as a file on the chat itself. Sorry. So if you go to the meeting chat, you will be able to attach a file over here, right? If you can see this chat screen over here as well. But if you can attach a file and send that poster to me, then I will be able to explain in better detail. But I do get what you're trying to say. But again, comparing those 2 different posters is going to be a little difficult without a frame of reference. So for now, I will move on to the next slide. So the next point we need to talk about is symmetry, also known as balance. So why is symmetry important or balance important? Is because we as human beings, we are born with symmetry in we ourselves are symmetrical. If you see, if we put an axis between our body, our left side is very identical to our right side. So, and if you imagine all of the prominent things around us, most of them are very, very symmetrical, and it gives us a sense of calmness. Everything from our planet Earth itself to our bodies to anything in front of you, if you look at it, majority of the things that gives us calmness are symmetrical, right? Which means that one side looks exactly like the other side, right? Well, whereas asymmetry, on the other hand, is like develops strong points of interest, uniqueness, and character, right? So if you notice something asymmetrical, then you will automatically, like for example, I do have this in front of me. Now, this is a Toastmaster award, which if you guys can see, I don't know if my video is visible to you or not.
Bring it a little front and it will be. Yeah, it's visible now.
Right. So, all right. So if you can see this, you can see that there is asymmetry over here. So our like eyes are directly pointed towards something that is asymmetrical and sticks out, right? So compared to everything else on this poster, this star stands out a lot because it is asymmetrical. So it is not that everything that you design has to be symmetrical. Sometimes you can also utilize asymmetry to create like strong interest points, like points of attraction as well. So we will look at examples of both symmetry and asymmetry moving now. Whereas like if you see symmetry, exactly, if you have to divine it, this is completely harmonically symmetrical. Like if you divide this design into four corners, I mean four pieces, each piece would look exactly the same, right? So that in essence is absolute symmetry. Whereas if you look at something asymmetrical and unbalanced, if you divided it, even it doesn't matter how many points you divide it into, it will look completely different, right? However, when you're doing this, you are creating strong points of over here and over here as well, right? It is a matter of how you utilize it that makes a lot of difference about how you are going to go about with your design, right? So you can also achieve asymmetrical balance, whereas only two sides become symmetrical, right? If you divide this through maybe another point of line, it would not look symmetrical, but in a certain way, it is still symmetrical. So what this is achieving is you are creating a strong point of interest, yet if you look at it in a larger scale, it is still symmetrical. So some examples of this is are posters like this, right? So this is asymmetrical, but it is balanced because if you see over here, this text is balanced by this picture of the cars. If you divide it, if you draw a line from point here to somewhere around here, this side would kind of look similar to this side in terms of not the composition, but just a general look and feel of it, right? If some great examples of this in use are in movie posters, where you can see it is the symmetry is if you decide draw a line straight through here, both sides would look pretty much even. Right? So again, sorry about that. So this is a really, really creative design in a sense, whereas it is like signifying a lot with symmetry. It's also establishing an hourglass within the design. It is very like pleasing to the eye, and it is designed really well. Similarly, this ad for McDonald's, if you can see, if you draw a straight line right between the two, side A and side B would be fairly identical, and it would be symmetrical in that sense, right? So these three principles that I just talked to you guys about are the three principles that I use the most when I am designing. There are a lot of other principles in terms of like fonts, like colors and stuff like that, which it is not as important for us to go through right now, because I want to go into actually coming up with designs, how we can actually create designs, what our thinking process could be, and things like that, right? So for now, I want to ask you guys, what do you guys do before you design? So I'll look for answers in the chat. Or a better question even might be, what do you guys do before you start writing your speech as well? So this is where creating a design and writing a speech can be actually very similar. Right, so we have a lot of answers about collect details, form a visual in the mind, think and imagine, do a rough sketch, right? Brochure, post, collect points, theme, structure. So people think about structure of the speech, main message. How many of you guys begin with research? Before you write or before you design, how many of you guys, like even if it's a college essays, let's say, how many of you guys begin by doing a little bit of research? So whenever I design, before every design, I actually spend at least a good 5 to 10 minutes doing research about the design itself, right? So where would you go to do a little bit of research about designs? If you guys think of the word research, what comes up to your mind? Anybody? Yes, I got the answer. The answer is Google, right? So on Google, whatever we are doing, Toastmasters, the closest reference is always going to be a conference. And we are looking for something creative, right? So this gives us a few ideas, like it will give us a lot of results, like posters like these, something like this. Again, so then we decide on what is the purpose of the design itself as well, right? Another tool that I really like that I use a lot is, I'm pretty sure you guys are really familiar with this, although it's not letting me access this right now, is Pinterest, right? So with the same keywords that I used earlier, it gives us a whole lot more of results in the same keyword, right? So I open up with the different like designs that I just find attractive on different browsers, right? The thinking points over here would be like, is this something that I can do myself? Is this something that is going to take a lot of time? Does this look nice? Would this be a good poster for my club? Right? So again, we can go into the design again over here, and then it also gives you a lot of similar ideas at the bottom over here, right? So one of my mentors in design used to tell me, like, ask me, what is the difference between a good designer and a great designer? Can anybody answer that question? I have simple, authenticity, designs, minimalist. So the closest answer I've gotten is by Toastmaster Varun Khanna. A great design learns from others. So the answer that I was looking for was, a good designer copies, a great designer steals. Right? So copying is, you would take a certain design and make something that looks similar. A great design is something that you take and make it your own. How many of you guys, especially if you are from District 41, recognize this poster? Where have you seen this poster?
Arvin has raised his hand.
Yes, Toastmaster Arvind.
Is in the template that you have shared.
Yes, so
syllabus.
this is the reference I took when we were designing the District 41. If you guys see, I'll just show you the example myself if this loads up really fast. All right, is my screen visible?
Yes.
Right. So if you guys have been to the PR corner and if you have seen the meeting templates that we have provided for you, the reference that we have taken is off of this poster, right? So you can see a lot of similarities, but a lot of differences as well. So again, this is how you can do a lot of research and figure out what is possible for you and what is not possible for you as well, right? So what I do after that is I just go through a lot of designs that I find, okay, this is nice, this is something that is doable, something that fits the purpose, right? So let me see, my chat is disabled. All right. So somebody's asked, what's the keyword to search those designs? So the keywords I use are creative conference posters, creative seminar posters, which yields similar results. So again, it is a lot of hit and trial methods. Again, there is no exact keyword that is going to give you the perfect result, but it is just trial and error. And then once you go into different designs, you will find some things that are similar that you can go like that you might be more attractive. Like, see, I thought this was attractive, but maybe if I scroll down, there is something that like looks even more appealing to me, like something like maybe this looks much better for personally, or even something like this, right? So once I have a frame of reference in mind, then I'll start looking into the composition of this image. So I will do this on Canva later, but for just to show the composition, I'll open it up in Photoshop. So if you look at this design, right, what are the different things that you guys can see on this design? You guys can see the images, you can see the text, the dates, the timing, all of those details, right? But what I look at it in a sense are shapes, right? So I look at it in terms of shapes, as in, just give me a second here. So I look at it in shapes. I see one big shape over here. Then I see another big shape over here, right? Right? Then there are a couple of images over here, like boxes over here. This identical box is repeated down here. Then we have a logo box over here, a box with text over here, another huge box over here, and maybe even with a couple of small boxes over here and over here. So if I had to look at this design, this is how I would see it, right? In terms of composition. As you can see now, this is really well balanced in terms of what you see over here and what you see over here. So there is, of course, there's a little bit of asymmetry with this block over here, but again, that is because probably the most important thing will go over here, which might be your meeting theme, which might be your meeting theme, which could be a little bit of information, the information about where your venue is, what time your meeting is, how to get in touch with you, what your club name is. The Toastmasters logo could go over here. So you start thinking and analyzing the design in terms of these aspects, right? So when I see this design, a quick analysis would take me over here, right? Then what I would do, and you guys can follow me over here, is open up Canva. So I'll try to go as slow as possible with this. So I request everyone to go with me and open it up on Canva yourself as well. With this tool, of course, the best size to design is the Instagram post, which is a square design, gives you a blank canvas, right? So again, if this is the design that I'm taking over, then I would copy it for a frame of reference. We can paste it over here. Just resize it according to your need, right? And maybe reduce the transparency. So the transparency can be reduced from this transparency tab over here, right? Then what I would start doing is I will start adding the elements in the Toastmasters brand compliant colors itself. Right. So this is the same process that I did earlier on when I was creating that composition, right? This is the exact same process that you guys can
Anuj, I'm just stopping you in between.
Sure.
They have asked for the link of the same image they want to practice on. So
All right,
can you put that in the?
will just put that on the chat box over here. Right. So you can then decide what color you want to put on it. Again, it is always, even on the free version, you can add up to three colors that are Toastmasters compliant, of course. If you guys already didn't know, if you guys haven't been VPPRs yet, the three primary colors, I mean, three of the primary colors of Toastmasters are the maroon, which is of this hex code. This, of course, you can get from the brand manual itself as well, the blue and the yellow, because all the other, like the white and the black as well, is already pre-available on Canva itself. So you do not need to add those colors in per se, right? So as long as you're not using any of these colors below over here, you should be fine in terms of creating different color palettes. So if we leave this just like this, you have two colors that are two posters that are pretty oddly colored, right? So once this is done, then we can start adding placeholders for your photos. So for that, what you need to do is go into elements, and on the search tab, you can add frame, right? So when you're adding frame, you can then elaborate into see all. And if you're looking for a specific shape, you can, again, this is where you can go deviate from that original design that you saw and then do something that you want to implement yourself as well, right? It is not necessary that you need to do exactly what you saw on the frame of reference, because that is what it is. Again, as I said, that is the difference between just copying it and creating something that is your own. You take the reference, but do things differently. So if I want, I can have circles in there, right? I can put 3 circles in there instead of 2, right? Then I can upload whatever images I have. May say they are my speakers. I will just drag and drop them and place them over here. Now, if you can see, another way of achieving balance is you can see that this speaker, the image that this speaker has provided me, although this is a stock image, is much wider than the images that are provided here and by this potential speaker. So if you want to resize it, you can always just double click on it, drag on the image, resize it, right? Again, do the same over here, drag on the image, resize it a little bit to make it look much better. Because what we have to also understand is like we are all Toastmasters, and we love getting our like pictures seen on posters. That is one of the reasons we sign up to speak, so that we can appear on the club posters as well. And it is always essential that our faces are clearly visible. The louder, the bigger the face, the better it is for us, right? So with that, then I would go again into the composition that we had over here, right? So the text and the logos. Sorry. We can add this up over here. Say we will start with the name of our clubs. Of course, the font that you can utilize is, if you don't have the Gotham fonts, always go with Montserrat, which is readily available on Canva itself. It is preloaded on Canva. Right. So over here, then we can start with my home club is Everest Toastmasters. So that's the name I put in. Change up the colors, maybe make this a little smaller, because ideally what happens is I would be posting this on our social media platforms, right? So people that are seeing this already know that this poster is for Everest Toastmasters. So this does not necessarily need to be the biggest thing on the design itself. Following that, the next thing that I would need to probably add on is the theme. Say the theme of the next meeting is New Year's, right? Again, if you can see over here, I do not want the word theme to be really highlighted, do I? Right, so what I can still do is I can again make this smaller, or maybe slightly bigger than that, right? Add a little bit of different distance over here. And we want people to process this together. So I would prefer to have this text closer to this text. So what I would do there is to select all of it, go into this tab that says spacing, and reduce the line spacing up a little bit. Okay.
Anuj, we have 2 questions in the chat.
Okay, all right. There are actually 3 questions. The RGBs, what I can do is I can ask request Toastmaster Ankit to kindly share the link to the brand guidelines over here. So all the RGB colors are available over there. The created image be resized with all the details? Toastmaster Love, I'm not sure I understand the exact questions. With the change to the aspect ratio, again, that works out with your composition. I got the question now. I did not see that earlier. I got that question. I understood the question. It is like you can resize it. Again, that is part of making it your own, but that will change up the composition a little bit. So it is up to you to decide where you want to place what, right? It is not that I'm asking, like, you don't need to necessarily exactly copy the design, like everything is going to be here, because say you really like this design, but you have 3 or 4 speakers in your next meeting. You cannot necessarily use this poster exactly the way it is. You will have to change the composition. So maybe you can make this, instead of a square poster, you can make it a slightly longer poster and add another picture over here, right? For example, how do I change the size of this poster? Now, this is something that I need to learn on Canva as well. Okay, I think. So I don't believe, if anybody can correct me over here, please like be, yeah, I think it is a paid feature to change the sizes up. I'm not exactly sure about this because I do not use like Canva on a regular basis. But what you can do is you can already start with your custom size, right? So good size on the custom sizes, like say the squares are 1080 by 1080, right? So the Instagram, if you see over here, when you only type in 1080, the Instagram portrait is slightly taller, right? So you can always switch into that mode, right? Now, what I like, since you have mentioned it, what I will do is I'll just select all of these elements, copy them, and paste them over here, right? Then this is just about elongating these two elements, right? Now I have enough space for my fourth speaker as well, right? So if and just in case the pro version is not available, then you will have to, again, it is something that is better if it is done if it is known before you start designing, so you can already change the size up. But if you've already started like I did, then you need to switch over to the next size. Then you can create a new document and just paste it over onto the next one as well, right? I do think there was one more question. What's the minimum font size for a post? There is no minimum size for fonts in any regards. Of course, what you need to understand is majority of the people will be seeing it on their mobile phones. So if you are zooming in and designing on this size, that might not be the size that your audience is going to see it. If you are sending it over WhatsApp, especially, it is going to reduce the resolution. So what a good reference is, just make sure that you are seeing the full frame before you actually start exporting. If you have difficulty seeing anything, then just go over there, make it a slightly bigger, and just adjust it according to your needs. There is no hard and fast rule on the Toastmasters guideline about how big your image needs to be or anything like that, right? But just the fonts need to be aligned. That is a primary requirement. So again, creating the difference on terms of hierarchy, you can also utilize colors, right? So thank you, Toastmaster Urban, for sharing that. So again, you can create hierarchy by establishing the thickness of the fonts, right? So the theme is more highlighted than the New Year's. You can always change that up, right? So New Year's, you want the New Year's theme to really, really stand out. So that's what you can do. Then say you have something, you have a multiple, you have a theme that goes into multiple lines, right? This is a very long example of a theme, right? So in this case, what you can do is just reduce the size up a little bit, right? And just, since if as you can see, this area looks really, really congested. So what I would essentially do is just increase the line spacing over here on all of this to just was an area that is comfortable, right? So following that, the next idea is to add, let's say the meeting is happening this Sunday, which is the 7th of January, 2024. You would essentially want to add where your meeting is taking place. So this is where Everest Toastmasters meetings takes place, where it is essential to tell people what time to get there, right? And if you have any kind of, say, registration link, or if you need to put in the phone number for your VPE, you could definitely put that in there as well. And then, of course, you could add the Toastmasters logo on there. Which I have not placed over here apparently. So if I can find it really quickly, I will place it over here. So you can go with any of these logos. I'll just place this for now. You can place it over here or essentially over here, right? Then if you want to create blocks for where you can put your speakers' names and stuff like that, you can do that as well. Again, you can hold down the control key to copy it multiply, or you can just go control C, control or command C, and then command V, and just drag and drop it over here. Right. Now, say you want to do something a little more creative than this, right? Say you want to utilize gradients. So what you can always do is search gradients over here. And if you can see, the problem with this is a lot of it is going to be paid, right? A lot of these gradients are paid, but what you can do is always utilize a gradient like this, a black gradient. Just place it over here, or you can even go off a frame, send it to the back. If you can, what you want to do is click over here, align to the page, layer, send backward or send to the back, and then bring it forward one by one to just have it right in front of the blue poster. Right. So now with this, I can change up the colors a little bit. Again, the options on that is the problem with this is I cannot add a third color. So I would have to look for something that kind of matches the brand colors, right? And then play around with the transparency a little bit to make sure it looks all right. On the other hand, what I could also do over here is essentially go back into Google and look for backgrounds, right? So when you are searching up on Google, a lot of the times you will find images like this, which will have the problem with like these is some of these images will have copyrights or watermarks or different things like that, right? So, or they are not of in big enough sizes, they or could have a whole host of problems with them. So a good way to go about that is utilizing the tools feature on Google itself. So you want large images with usage rights where you can write commercial or other licenses or Creative Commons licenses, right? So that takes away all of the ones that are copyright images, and majority of these are going to be very, very usable, right? So again, select ones that do not have any of these kind of things. Right? So something like even like this will work. Just copy this image, bring it back here, and paste it. Okay. So of course you can then drag and drop and resize according to your need. Send it back. Right. and then adjust the transparency on that. So if you make it less transparent and you already have a blue background on the back, it kind of makes it look like you are very, very compliant, right? And to an extent, this transparencies, this is how you work with the brand compliant transparencies. So once you are done with this, of course, it is up to you how you want to change things around. If you want to, like, change up the colors, I just want maybe like, once you have the foundations, you can spend time on it if you want to, or you just want to go ahead with it. Just utilize different options and make sure that you are coming up with the better results that are convenient to you, right? So essentially, this is something that you guys can utilize in that regards. So with this, we have created a poster, right? So what I would like you guys to do now is, maybe if you guys want to do, if you guys were following me along and created a design like this, wonderful. But of course, there are resources that I already had that I utilized. So what I can do is I can share these images with you on this chat. Gray is allowed in certain cases. Like, I would not use it as a major color, but you can use gray as well, yes. So what I'll do for you guys right now is I'll send you the images of our 4 speakers that I just utilized. Right, so feel free to download these from the chat. And if you guys have any questions before you guys want to do a little bit of design, you guys can ask me the question. If there is a certain design that you find that you guys want to follow along with me, well, and design, that is that is fantastic as well. So would you guys prefer a follow along? Toastmaster Purna, black gradient is not allowed on Toastmasters. I think we will be doing a more detailed session on the brand guidelines probably in a couple of weeks. So please make sure that you join those. Again, same goes for Toastmaster Thakur. We have shared the brand guidelines on the chat earlier. Toastmaster Ankit has also shared, and I do believe somebody else also shared a few things. But again, the more detailed discussion about the backgrounds and stuff like that will happen in a couple of weeks. Right now, if you guys have any questions, I would like to answer some questions, and then we can, if you guys want to, we can spend another few minutes designing a poster. All right, I will show you guys how to search for the gradient again. Again, as I said, Canva can be very tricky in terms of the gradient. So again, you go into the Elements tab. You just go on the type and type in gradients, not grandparents, gradient, right? Then you click see all, and you can see a few of them over here are available, and these are the ones that might be editable, right? So you just drag over here, and if you can see over here, it is already giving me color options. So if I select blue or maroon or yellow, right, that can be done.
Anuj, we have a raise of hand from Anuj Sarkar.
Sure, sure.
Hello.
Yes, yes.
Hi, Anuj. My
Hi,
name
Anuj.
is also Anuj. So actually, I have a question for you. So actually, if you are taking some references from Pinterest or Behance.
Uh-huh.
So actually, you are copying something.
So as I said, what the difference between a good designer and a great designer is
Okay.
copying
So
and
let me.
stealing. So
So
yeah, I do not copy it. I take it as a reference and make my own design. So that is what I would recommend to do as well. But like again, there is a saying
but
that
actually, uh, so how can I make something new?
something new. Again, for when you're making something new, then you can just look at different examples, right? And just
Okay.
combine a lot of examples to create your own as well,
Okay.
right? That is one way of doing like completely new things as well, right? You can like find again it 9 out of 10 times, right? When you are a creator, like when you're trying working in the creative field, you will struggle to find ideas, right?
Yeah.
And in even when you're writing like writing a speech, you are listening to other speeches for inspiration. You're looking for at like researching. So in essence, what you're creating is not an exact replica of that. And I'm not saying you go out and like do this exactly this like everything same on what you see on Pinterest, but it is always good to get inspired, right? So there
Okay.
is a difference between copying and getting inspired, taking inspiration. So what I'm saying is, don't create the exact same thing, right? Because if you see
Okay.
the design that I had referred to on when I was doing the the templates that the district has provided, it is not the exact same thing. There are a lot of different things as well, right? But it is like I did have an inspiration in mind. So there is a difference between like taking inspiration and doing something like copying something as well. So it really depends on you as a designer how you want to take it ahead. But whatever you can come up with, that is creative. And
Okay.
as Toastmaster Anish over on the chat said, very thing less things are new. Every idea is already taken, right? So
Yes.
somebody told me like the thing that gets like steal the fastest is an idea. I mean, even if you make something completely new, people will copy it and it will start looking the same as well. So it is always just how you take a look at it. So we have more questions over here. How to remove background of a photo and keep the person's face only? So that is a really good question. What I usually like to do is, if you're using like if you don't have access to Photoshop or anything like that, there are different websites. The one that is most popular is removebackground.io or something similar. No, this is not it. Yeah, remove.bg. So there is this website called remove.bg that you guys can go to. I will share that link over here as well. And then just upload the image that you need the background removed from. And say I will utilize this one. Right. So I just uploaded an image into this. And it will use generative AI to remove the background for me. Right. So you guys can just copy this link over here. Toastmaster Uttam has another question. While making designs for social media channels like TikTok, Instagram, do we follow their grid layout right? Again, there is no hard and fast rule. Yes, Toastmaster Jaspreet, this is free. Of course, you cannot download in high quality on like until you pay for it, but it'll give you a decent enough size to use for free. Right, so I think we'll move on to the Q&A sessions as well with this, because I do see another question over here as well. Making designs for social media channels like TikTok, Instagram, do we have to follow their grid layout? Not necessarily. You do not need to follow, as I said, there are no hard and fast rules to what you need to follow. But whenever you, especially if you're doing for like designs for TikTok and social media, you will see a lot of like, especially on TikTok, say, right? You remember the screen of a TikTok, you will have all of those likes and share buttons and all of those buttons in the down, on the bottom. So you generally want to avoid putting any kind of content over there because then it will not be seen in that area, right? I have a question from Toastmaster Jasprit again. Can you do it again? What are you talking about specifically?
The background removal that you did.
Okay, so the background removal is very, very simple, Toastmaster Jasprit. What you basically need to do is go into the remove.bg website, right? You just need to upload your image that you have on your computer, right? I'll do a different image this time, just put in the image and it will automatically remove the background, right? And then you can click on download and then you can just download the PNG that is transparent, right? So, and as Toastmaster Joanna said, you can also copy and paste it onto this website as well. Multiple fonts under the guidelines, is it okay? I wouldn't suggest we stick to the fonts that Toastmasters provide us, right? And even on that, now there are 3 different fonts that we can utilize. We can utilize 3 different fonts, but again, I would personally, I like to avoid a lot of fonts in that. People have their preferences. It's just what you think looks good on the design, right? There are designs that you can utilize 3 different fonts just to make something highlighted. Like I will show you an example of something that is using 3 different fonts and it still looks good. Is if we go back to this design, if you see over here, this is using 3 different fonts over here, right? So this is a different font over here. The we are and marketing agency is a different font, and the creative is a different font. However, like again, using too many different fonts might not be the ideal way to go, and how much of what font you use is also essential. So again, creating hierarchy using different fonts is also an option for you. So the next question I have is there any AI like Midjourney which creates social media posts? I'm sure there are, but none that I am super familiar with. And I have tried a few of them and I have not not been particularly impressed with any of those. Especially for Toastmasters, it is going to be really difficult to actually utilize because we have to do a lot of human pictures in there itself. So I'm not exactly sure how that would work. Can you please give me a quick recap of things? So we do have a recording that I think you can contact us later and we might be able to send you. We can use multiple fonts. So in the latest edition of the Toastmasters brand guidelines, they have added a script font, which is a handwriting kind of a font. So let me just share my screen really quickly. So if you go into the new Toastmasters brand manual, if you go into the fonts, right? If you go into the font section, you have Gotham, Myriad Pro, and they have added a new font, which is Luxurious Script, which is a free version, and a script font means something that looks like this. Okay, so again, this is to be used to promote special events such as a club anniversary or anything like that. But this is something that still can be utilized. And I am pasting the link for the new brand guidelines over here. Right. So there are two script fonts that you can utilize. One is Corinthia. And the other one is Luxurious Script. Right. So Toastmasters has expanded their brand guidelines to a certain extent. I don't know, did I just close the... Okay. Know where the brand guidelines thing went, but regardless. Okay, so again, do we have any more questions? A raise of hand, or you can put it in the chat. So I have a question that reads, what should the font size be to be visible clearly? Rather than the size, I would first focus on the contrast, like, so make sure that it is like completely different from the colors in the background. Right. After that, again, the size itself is completely dependent on you. Just to play around, like, just remember that majority of the people are looking at it on their phones. So you would want to like make sure that, okay, like compare it on your screen with your phone and then decide if it is like, visible or not. Do we have any more questions? Where will I get the symbol template of the Toastmasters International? By symbol, do you mean the logo or? So the logo in our PR corner, if you go into on the website, you can definitely go onto the Toastmasters website like itself as well, and there is a PR corner. But if you look at the brand resources, we have put in the logo resources over here. If you click on it, it'll redirect you to the toastmasters.org website where you can download all of the logos that are provided. So all of the logos on all of its variants are provided over here. Just, yeah, then you can utilize that to download it. Yeah. What about removing the background more like the PNG file, like you have your picture on his sessions poster? So on my sessions poster, I utilized the Photoshop. So again, Photoshop is going to be slightly more different because it is a much more powerful tool in itself. So if I was working on Photoshop, what I would do is I just open up the image and then it will give me a tool like in the properties to just remove the background. So then I am allowed to just save it as PNG, and with the transparencies removed, it should be Photoshop. I do believe there are free versions available, but again, a majority of it is paid. I do recommend remove.bg because it's gives you similar kind of results as well. Right, so you can still download this as a PNG, right? And then you can just drag this image over here and you can still utilize it like in the way you are talking about. Sorry. Toastmaster Jaspreet, I hope that answers your question. So the results that you get on remove.bg are still usable by just after downloading them, right? And then you can just add them over here as well, right? So it is pretty much the same, is essentially the same thing. You'll have similar results with that. Do we have any more questions? All right, so if we do not have any more questions, then of course, I will bring an end to the session for today. Thank you for being such a wonderful and participative audience. I hope this was a little bit useful to you guys and something that you guys can like apply later on. And with that, I'd like to hand the floor back over to the Sergeant at Arms, Toastmaster Kajol. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Toastmaster Anus, and thank you everyone for attending this PR Lab workshop. With all of your active participation, we successfully covered part 1 of the workshop. So as we all do at Toastmasters, let's just give a clap to all of us. We have 3 more parts remain for this exclusive learning. Details will be shared soon on all our WhatsApp group. Meanwhile, as you all know, at Toastmasters, evaluation and feedback is valuable to us as we strive to improve this workshop. So kindly take few minutes to share your feedback